Hi folks, welcome to another episode of NYC CNC. I've got my Tormach ripped apart right now. I'm installing the enclosure and doing a short video series on it. I promise there'll be a lot of fast forwarding to keep that install build nice succinct video. Today we're going to take a field trip. I went up to Mega CNC. They had an open house and you'll see the footage here in a minute. Just a short sort of 5-minute tour. Long story short, I might work with them on a used Fadel rebuild that's sort of the program that they do. Also a beautiful shop of, wonderful foreign. Also have a beautiful shop of some wonderful, nice, shiny equipment that you'll see some footage of. In full disclosure, this is a very different video. Yes, it's sort of part 2 of my hunt for the VMC, which, it follows my progress as basically a layman, as an outsider looking to buy a vertical machining center. And I'm trying to answer and ask all the dumb questions that no one wants to ask. So without further ado, here's about 5 minutes of footage of the field trip itself. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about some of the other takeaways, some of what I learned, some of my next steps. And then after that, I've got a few minutes of footage. I talked to a tooling vendor at the open house. He showed off a really cool Tico vise and a really cool insert end mill. It's very sales pitchy intentionally. It's sort of like what you'd see at a trade show. So by all means, if that's not interesting to you, don't watch it. But again, some of us don't always have the luxury of going to these open houses or trade shows. So if you want to see a really high material removal end mill or a really cool vise, feel free to enjoy. Good morning, folks. I'm on my way up to Cleveland for an open house of the folks at Mega CNC. A viewer actually recommended a fellow there. They're a machinery dealer and they also rehab Fadels. So they've got, I think, a couple of 40 by 20s in stock, but more importantly, they have sort of a system where they find used machines and rehab them. And I think you can kind of choose what level you want. And I spoke to the fellow on the phone briefly about, do you want an older, cheaper one with DC servos or AC servos? So they have an open house today, super excited. I remember when I was in New York City, I used to get the open house flyers for a lot of the vendors out in Long Island. I could never go because of either my day job at the time or just too much of a hassle factor. But so I'm excited to go to my first one. I thought I'd make a little video out of it here, and yeah. So on our way up right now, about a 2-hour drive, and hopefully we'll get some footage from inside the shop. So I'll see you here in a minute. Here we are, folks. Awesome to be here. We're in the back of the shop. These, like I said, these folks bring in a lot of used machines on trade or pick them up and then they restore them, which is sort of why I'm here. In the front of the shop, which we'll go to in a minute, they've got all the real shiny new machines. That is what they do as an actual dealer. But guys, we'll talk about fun, like a kid in a candy store. Old closing lathe here, familiar sight. It's actually funny how small the Bridgeport like that looks in a shop like this, especially next to that Dual. Whew, check out that. Here is one of the 4020s that the owner, he said it was the second one he built. It's like an 87. It's all box ways. He's got one coming in that he was telling me may be a good fit, which is linears on the X and Y, but boxes on the Z. He said to stay away from linears on all three, which is the 4020L, I guess. But I'm sure you guys will appreciate it. It's just fun to poke around here and see all the very, very cool tools and so forth. And the fellow here is booting this machine up, so let's see if we can get it running here. Here is a 4020. I don't know what year it is. All box ways. You can see the old DC servos torn off. There's a nice, look at that ball screw that looks like it's out of the Y, torn off. But pretty cool. They were talking about how when they get these things in, a lot of times all they've got to do is clean them, replace some bearings, but a lot of it's really just stripping it down and doing, a big old clean job. The controller there. They were saying too that the iron on these machines is middle of the road, but folks seem to really like the controller. I'm trying to learn more about that today because if I'm not doing conversational programming and relying on the controller as much, but rather using CAM and G code, then I got to figure out how important that is. Ooh, there's a roll-up door up, and look, I think they must border a real machine shop. A couple of slant bed houses and a VMC right there. I won't bother them, given that that's not our shop tour today. Here's one that looks like it's probably headed for the graveyard. Not a lot left of that. I gotta wonder if those chains are to counterbalance the Z head. Let's poke around the back. You're not gonna be able to see it. Oh yeah, that sucker's been decimated. Huh. One of the reasons I made the trip up is a viewer actually recommended me to Dave over at Mega CNC and said he's a really good guy, and you know, it's tough when you I'd always rather go on a reference, even if it's a disconnected reference, than just cold calling the shop. And sure enough, I met him this morning. Super nice guy, and always nice to see someone that has a sense of humor. Sitting here playing with the 4020 old school controller M6 T20. Let's see if it'll pull in that collet mill there. Picks up what was tool 2. Sweet, she's in. Here we are out on their main demo floor. Got a bunch of machines. They're not really running any of them actually making chips, but they are running them cutting air. This is a mold making machine. It's a bridge type, so it can hold heavier work pieces because the table only has to move in the Y. The X and Z are handled via the head itself, if you will. It's sort of like a gantry style. My microphone broke, so sorry folks, this is a post-tour audio overdub. And then coming up is a sort of standard VMC. I think this was a Cat 50, 30 tool changer side mount, pretty heavy duty type machine, lower RPMs up to 6,000, so really good for, say, tool steels, that type of work. I didn't know the Yamasaki brand, but apparently it is a very good brand. And then last, we've got a horizontal. And these things are so funny to me because they're a very productive machines, but it's funny because you've got such a small work envelope, or it appears to be that way. This one I know is going to be used to machine the ends of long extrusions, and I think they've got a Renishaw probe in it right now. Obviously the side mounter tool changer is hidden behind the sheet metal there, but pretty cool. So I want to thank the guys at Mega CNC. They were super nice. I was very honest with them about who I am and what I'm trying to do and the process I'm going through. I even told them I'm doing a video series, and I get a little embarrassed sometimes. I was walking out back to my truck to grab something, and their front office, 4 or 5 people, had the hunt for the VMC first episode up. So it was sort of funny and awkward that they're already watching the video about this process. So they were great. The guy's a super nice guy, and that's part of life. You've got to size people up and figure out, is this somebody I want to partner with or work with? And that's really, to me, what this would be, because there's plenty of Cleveland area or Ohio or Midwest area used equipment dealers, or there's eBay or other options where you're just going to be sold something. And when you start thinking about it, and this is a decision I've thought a lot about, you're ultimately buying something that nobody else wants, or you're willing to pay more for something than anybody else, and somebody else doesn't want that equipment. That's why it's being used. Kind of a nerve-wracking thing. But Dave was a great guy. Seems like a very stand-up guy. Again, I heard about him through a viewer, and that means a lot from a social sort of recommendation. Sorry, the dog is being a little needy today. I had a chance to play with the 4020. I didn't make any chips, but definitely jogged it around, got a nice feel for it. I'll be honest, it's anticlimactic. It makes me really appreciate my Tormach. And do I still want a VMC? Absolutely. My sort of thesis is I want a second mill. I want a mill that has a larger work area for certain jobs. I want one that I can build larger fixture plates on. I want one with a little bit more rigidity. I also just want one. I've wanted one for geez, ever since I first saw a Haas. I hate to admit it, but that's what I saw. I just thought, man, this is something, some people like cars, some people like other things, toys. I want a VMC. Dave was great though, because he talks about, he sells them to furniture manufacturing companies, he sells them to machine shops, he sells them to garage guys who just want to have a machine to tinker with in their garage. So some of the questions that I learned today, that some of the folks that are watching this who are seasoned machinists, you're going to laugh, but look, you got to start somewhere. Haas is a proprietary control. It means Haas makes their own sort of software, if you will. Fadel does as well. The other 2 major ones that I think are out there are Siemens and Fanuc. And lots of people like the FANUC controllers, and the shiny machines you saw in the front of their shop were all FANUC machines. I think a lot of the high-end Japanese type machines that I've mentioned before are not proprietary controllers, but rather something like a FANUC. The controller, it matters, but again, I'm going to rely on CAM, so it has more to just do with learning it and the idiosyncrasies of it more than, again, conversational programming. At the end of the day, not something I'm really worried about. What is interesting is it's kind of, I'll say it's a pain in the butt. The truth is I just don't know how I would do it yet. But buying a 15-year-old Fadel, the question is how do I get the G-code onto the machine? There's a USB upgrade kit, not cheap though, I think $500 or more, that lets you put it on a thumbstick, which I really like. I think you can stream it through RS-232. There's some options out there, but again, it's part of it's just, it's outside of your comfort zone. I'm used to my Tormach and Mach 3. Fadel has been out of business. They, however, due to the sheer number of machines in existence, there is apparently pretty good support. I've heard lots of comments about don't buy them or bad support or big problem machines. There are parts though, and one of the things I was hoping would come clear out of sort of crowdsourcing this process with you guys through YouTube, and there's been some conversations on the Facebook page as well, is having some, here's the machine you want. This is the absolute answer. There's no question. This is the Honda Accord of the VMCs. It's balance of functionality and price and value and blah, blah, blah. And there isn't. You continue to hear people who are mature and seasoned and experienced say good and bad things about Haas, good and bad things about Mazak, good and bad things about Fadels. So far I've not seen any absolute must stay away, nor any holy grails. I continue to hear very, very opinionated things about Haas. A number of folks on YouTube and Facebook have said we've had great luck with them, no problems. The folks at Mega CNC, I shouldn't speak for them, so please don't take it as such. And there was just small talk. A concern is the service tech going to be familiar with older machines, because they do change them off, and if you got a machine that's 20 years old, you got to make sure the service is good. And the personal opinion seems to be stay away. Maybe they have an opinion or a motive to say that. I think I'm going to try to stay away though. The last thing I'll mention, totally tangential to machining, but financing. There was a gal there from a major bank, and she, just trying to talk to anybody, struck up a conversation with me at lunch. And folks, it is crazy. Credit is loose, in my opinion. They were, and talk is cheap as well. I did not go through this process, nor do I intend to, but her comment was she will finance 100% of any machine, new or used, based on just your credit score, up to $150,000. So if you have a credit score, she sort of insinuated like 650 or above, they don't need to see personal financials, they don't need to see business tax returns, income statements, net worth. It was a simple 2-page app that she could have approved in a very short period of time to finance 100% of the cost at sub 5% financing. Folks, that's crazy. It's not my personal belief, not something I personally would have an interest in doing, but if you can make a higher return on your money than that 4 or 5%, that is one way to grow. I think that's I would never want to make that loan. I'll put it that way. She claims they don't have a lot of credit default or problems there. Who knows? And the only sort of gotcha is it's really heavy amortization, 5 or 6 years. So your payment, unlike your house payment, which is over 30 years, this machine, the loan will be paid off in 5 or 6 years. So it'll be a pretty high monthly payment, but a lot of that's going to the principal reduction. But still, folks, that's crazy. So with that, that's sort of a wrap for this part of the episode. I hope you liked it. Next steps for me are to see what the new 4020 is that they get in, what kind of price are they talking, is it going to be a good fit? I'm still looking at some other ones. One of the fellows has really been pushing to Mazak, and it sounds sexy, but ultimately it's going to go back to who do I have a relationship with, and Mega CNC can and will service it. I know that they will service it. I have a comfort level that they stand behind it, and that's what it's all about. So the rest of the footage here in this little video is meeting with the Jason from Metal Cutting Specialist, I think. A super nice guy. and he was talking to me about both a vise and a pretty sweet end mill. So if you guys want to watch that, take a look. Otherwise, see you soon, folks. Take care. So they've got a guy here from Metal Cutting Specialist, Jason, who was just showing me some of their tooling stuff, and I thought I'd show off a cool vise and one of their insert end mills that has some pretty impressive specs.
The product that we have here is a vise from Tico. Tico is located in Dayton, Ohio, and we're a manufacturer of what I call a work holding system. It's not just a vise, it's a work holding system that allows you to break down your setup costs much lower and get your setup times down to a minimal amount of just a couple minutes. First of all, the vise is ground length, width, and height within a half a thou all directions. We have the only knuckle in the marketplace that has a full pull down force to draw the parts in instead of having any jaw lift. And we also have the only vise in the market that's got an auto offset feature, so I can adjust my offset, and that allows me to control the brake on both jaws, so it minimizes the amount of jaw brake that we have to do to get parts in and out of the vise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this at a 31,000 setting. Also, our jaws, when they snap on, they're reversible, so I can reverse that jaw both directions. My center jaw is also reversible.
And that's the fixed jaw.
This is a fixed jaw. And our center jaw has 3 points of contact. So this pin and these two outer buttons is what we're using to locate the bottom of this jaw. We have two different types of jaws. We have a hard jaw with our AccuSnap system, and then we have a completely machinable jaw that we provide in steel and aluminum. So I can machine out a pocket into this jaw, and then if I have another job, I can put a second family of parts on the other side. We also do, this is a 4-inch vise. I can put a 6-inch wide jaw, all machinable, on there. And that one's also reversible. So it's an all reversible jaw system to get truly two families of parts out of one set of jaws. This particular jaw system is what we call AccuSnap. And AccuSnap works off of a locating gib. And the locating gib has 2/10 repeatability, X, Y, and Z. So when I snap this in, I know that's in there. And that's in there. There's no wiggle at all to that vise. There's no wiggle to the jaw. That particular jaw is now fixed in place in 2/10 repeatability. So when I want to do a jaw change, so I just went from a machinable jaw to another jaw that we call mill angles. So now I can set my part at a specific angle, and now I'm going to set my parts in at that angle, and it's that quick to do a job change. So this product here is a new product that Techniques just released into the marketplace. It's what we call our positive high feed cutter. This will allow us to ramp and mill pockets at some of the highest aggressive rates. We were just looking at the literature, and it shows that in low carbon 1018 steel, I can mill a pocket open at over 100 thousandths axial depth of cut at 100 thousandths feed per tooth. So literally, this tool will run at 400 thousandths max feed rate per revolution at about 100 thousandths depth of cut at about a 70% radial width of cut. And at those rates, this will outrun any other cutter design when you're trying to do pocketing. This package here with a cutter and a couple boxes of inserts will run about $300. It's an exceptional value if you're trying to get a lot of stock removal out of a block of steel that you're trying to cut.
Come in and face it off and see what it